Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So I have a team that's gonna reinvent the internet today, and it's just absolutely amazing. So today we have Bruce Lee, one and only. We also have Yanbo, the co-founder of On-Chain, and finally we have Yilun as well. And they're gonna build a new kind of network. So Bruce, can you tell me what a new kind of network is?
Well, the new kind of network is the decentralized, self-incentivized, and self-evolving network. So that's kind of the technical term. But in layman's term, we want to build the world's largest exchange for extra bandwidth. It's like an Airbnb for all internet connectivity. And that's our kind of vision. So our mission will be free the bits and rebuild the internet we always wanted. So that's kind of in a very high level what NKN is.
Right, and how are you trying to build this? So who do you have on your team as well? Can you introduce the other two members?
Yes, the kind of the mastermind behind the project is really Yanbo, who is a co-founder of the On-Chain, which developed a very famous project called the DNA, an open source project in the blockchain space. So yeah, Yanbo and I actually go back far back, and we have been working together in Nokia for 8 years. He's a tech lead, and I'm the product manager. We have always been doing innovation in the mobile space and the communication space. So we always try to find a way, how can we use both technology and business innovation to really change the 1.4 billion or trillion, $1.4 trillion communication business. So that's our background and where we come from. And Dr. Zhang or Yilun, and he's the kind of our core researcher and developer. One of the things he brings to the table is he has some deep understanding of cryptography and also the consensus algorithm, and using physics and math to produce the new consensus algorithm for our project. So I think we work really well together with very complementary skill sets.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. And so you guys have been in Nokia for a while, and then here you have this whole cryptography experience, and you also brought, I think, the inventor of public keys on board for this project as well. I think that's Diffie over there. So, okay, so in these terms, why do you want to reinvent the whole internet as it is? So, right now the internet is kind of working. Why do we need a new way to look at things?
I will start, and maybe Yanbo, you can add more. So there are a few things. So the internet today is not really that open. They are actually fragmented. So some of the some of the servers, parts of the world can never access, right? So it's actually not free and also fully connected. That's one. Secondly, the network capacity is not fully utilized. There is a huge kind of waste. It's kind of ephemeral goods. If you don't use the internet connectivity, it's gone the next minute. But if you can reuse it, share it, then everybody gets much better service. So that's the second problem. There's other problem related to privacy and confidentiality. And in the US, particularly, we have the network neutrality. So how can the internet, the innovation on top of the internet can be done without the service provider restricting you and prioritize based on their service model? So I think those are the kind of key challenges we think exist today. And I think this project is aiming to address that. So I leave to Yanbo and Yilun to add more to this challenge.
Yeah, in terms about what Bruce just said, we also have some, our goal or target for this project is that one is just Bruce said, we want to collect everyone and any place because, even the internet collect everyone, but, in current world, the internet just be split in subnet for some reasons. So we want to set up them collected without any block or something like that. And meanwhile, the neutrality. And also, I think that the network resource is just their very fundamental resource in the information technology, just like the CPU resource, processor resource, or storage resource. There are no good incentive or sharing mechanism in there. But with combined with blockchain, we could be make them together. And in this case, we could be inspire people to sharing the boundaries or sharing the network connectivity for more people, make the network more scalable, and to incentive some people to building the internet by themselves.
And in addition to that, I want to mention that for the decentralized apps or DApps, there are really no ways for most of the DApps to communicate with each other. So in the traditional internet, we have like a centralized servers that is like relaying data for different clients connected to the server. However, in the decentralized world, or for most of the DApps, there's no such kind of centralized server, and so there's really no way to transmit data in real time between clients running DApps. So we also want one of our mission is to enable all the DApps to communicate with each other in a real time and like in the traditional network with a high performance internet.
Wow, it's crazy because you guys are tackling a problem that has been fundamentally there since the invention of the internet, right? When the internet started, it was just a bunch of subnets connected together, and we haven't moved anywhere else since. So now it's the idea that you want to completely trying to rewire this whole system and using blockchain technology to do so. And I think there's an HBO show based on this idea of Silicon Valley. They've been talking about the new internet for quite a long time. So do you think they've been inspired by you guys in some way?
Actually, I'm a big fan of Silicon Valley, the show as well. So actually, I have had a hire staff from the show for a few months, and we developed this project with Yanbo and Yilun and a couple of guys. So actually, I never caught those episodes which talk about these decentralized internet or new internet. So I actually caught up some of the episodes recently. I thought, wow, what's an uncanny coincidence? And I think it must be some kind of unconscious influence in the universe that kind of help us to bring this idea into fruition. So because we are not talking about show anymore, actually we're building the real protocol and the real incentive plan for the show.
And this is the abstract part because it is a new internet. Not many people understand why there's a need to do it. So in terms of possible applications, how can I start sharing data? Like, you said that the bandwidth of the internet right now is being underutilized. So what is some potential direct applications that the new kind of network can provide?
Yes, we can give you one kind of more consumer use case. So for example, Michael, you and me both are in the center of Hong Kong, and maybe you have a really good cellular connection. I'm probably roaming on some really lousy connection, and I have to send a YouTube video, your video, to Yanbo for some reason, and which will take hours if I send with my lousy connection. So the ideal use case is really you can help me relay the traffic through your connection, right? There's a few barriers today. First of all, today the protocol did not talk to each other, and you and me might not know each other, and we don't have the trust and payment mechanism. But if both the phones can run the NKN protocol as well as the economic model, then I can get the file transfer very quickly through you, and you get incentive, the tokens as incentive and the reward. And we do not need to know each other. And once the transaction is done, we don't even need to have the connection anymore. So that's kind of one use case. I'm saying when you are wondering about in the center of Hong Kong, you have the extra bandwidth. You never know you could use it to actually earn you a few extra money for beer.
Right, and that's an interesting concept. I mean, Wi-Fi, 3G roaming sometimes is just absolutely terrible. I tried live streaming it once before, and so the idea that you can start to connect to foreigners, not just centralized services. So right now you do have centralized Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi, or even your kind of Wi-Fi services that charge money by hour. But the idea is that you can connect to anybody that's running NKN, that's running this protocol. You don't have to know each other. And then you have a payment method that's not credit card, right? So right now, if you connect to a foreign network that's credit card, you have to bill it by hour, 24-hour packages. They're expensive, and you don't want to trust your credit card information going over that Wi-Fi anyways. But if you have NKN, then you're going to have a currency to communicate, and then also a way to share that bandwidth as well.
Wow, you definitely hit the bull on the eye.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we're trying to do. Yes.
Right. So in terms of building that, how complicated is it? Does it require a lot of client interfacing? So say, for example, do I need to download, if I'm a consumer, do I have to download apps to start sharing? Or how does that work?
There are a few different cases. If the consumer only want to use a client, maybe by downloading, for example, like a DApp, like Yilun mentioned, a decentralized instant messaging, like let's say a NKN-powered WeChat or NKN-powered WhatsApp. then he does not really need to do much other than just use that application, which underneath is using the NKN, using NKN API. So that's one use case. And the other use case, if I'm an ISP or just a normal user at home, we have a home computer, we have very wide bandwidth. I want to relay traffic for other people and earn some money, which is kind of mining on the side. Then you can run the full protocol. Then, of course, you have to run the full node. So there's different ways you can actually get a software and run it. And either you just use it as a user or use it as a full node, both a user and also a kind of supplier to the network. And even further down the chain, if you are an internet service provider or if you're a core router switch vendor, you can run the protocol really in the core of internet. And then you'll have the future mining pool for the NKN.
Right. So
and in addition to that, the NKN software not require high processor power and it can be running on personal computer or maybe smartphone or router and switch. Because one of the design goal of the NKN is that we want every device could be joined the network, and that will be benefit for everyone in such a case. Yes.
Right. So how does that work then? Because right now, in terms of joining the Bitcoin network, you need to download a full node. So with the smaller networks, how do you process information? Do you use proof of work or do you use something else?
Yeah, I think this is definitely Yilun's forte. But I'll give you a very high-level description, and then I'll hand off right to Yilun for more technical discussion. Right. So on a very high level, the things we want to solve is a very light protocol, so very minimum processing, not based on the hashing power, right? So you can run on the phones and even IoT devices. Secondly, how can you run a new consensus algorithm that can reach consensus very quickly over millions or even billions of nodes, which is a few levels different from Ethereum network, which is a few thousand. So I'll now move to Yilun, why we have Yilun on board to solve those tough problems.
Yeah, exactly. So there are two technical highlights of NKN. So the first one is that we use proof of relay, we call it. So it's you can treat it as a useful proof of work. So instead of computing hash, which we don't really think it's useful, we nodes do mining by relaying data. So basically, you don't need to compute a crazy amount of hash. You just relay data, and that's all you need. That's a mining in NKN network. And the second one is that as really large network with at least millions of nodes or even to billions of nodes, there's really no way to use the existing consensus algorithm or mechanism to reach a consensus between millions of nodes. So we are developing a new consensus algorithm that is scalable in such a scale so that every node only communicates with a few neighbors, and the whole network, no matter it's millions of nodes or billions of nodes, is guaranteed to reach consensus in a very fast time. I can give you an example. So think of our brain, how our brain works. So there are billions of neurons in the brain, but there is no neuron that is connected or communicate with all other neurons. Actually, on average, each neuron only communicates with thousands of other neurons, which is a really tiny portion out of the billions of neurons. But in such a localized communication, in such a localized way, the whole brain is able to be coordinated and work in an organized way, but not goes to chaos. So I'm not crazy. So our consensus algorithm is really similar to the brain. So actually, there are similar models in different fields. In neuroscience, we have neural network, and also in computer science, and also in physics, we have ISO model and cellular automata. So basic idea is that every node only communicate to its neighbors and listen to the states of its neighbors and change its own state based on it, and then tell information to its neighbors. So there's really no broadcasting, and it works in an energy efficient way or bandwidth saving way. But still, the whole system can reach consensus in a really short time scale.
Awesome. That's a lot of information. So we have two big questions I want to ask Yilun. So one question is, if you're not using a hash function, because hash function kind of guarantees that the result is unpredictable from the start. So how does the proof of relay guarantee the same properties of a hash function, and how does it make it secure?
Okay, so we are using the hash function, but we are not trying all different kind of like hash with different random numbers. So basically, we have something we call the signature chain. So when the data start from the source to the destination, so every time a node relays the data, that's its signature to the signature chain. So that we can show that the signature chain is unpredictable as long as at least one node on the chain is not controlled by you, or you don't know the private key. And also it's verifiable, but it's random. We call it verifiable random function. So basically it's like a mining. So the result is random. It's not controlled by any node or any party except unless it controls all the nodes along the route. And also the result is verifiable, so that it satisfies all the property we need for like a useful proof of work.
Right. So it does have the property. So as long as you don't control the full chain, and we know that internet routing, it requires quite a lot of hops through different spaces. So as long as you don't control the entire chain, you can guarantee that the results are random, and that's why the proof of relay is just as safe as proof of work, right?
Exactly. And also the topology is the topology of the nodes are in the like verifiable but uncontrollable way. So to most nodes, it's like a random connections. So it's really hard for a malicious party to control all the nodes along the route, because you can think of every hop as like random to the nodes. Yeah.
So that's where the internet hops, right? It hops, and then unless you control the whole thing. But are there countries where, like, say, a single ISP can control all of the nodes along the way?
So we actually have because we have like a virtual address. We call it NKN address. So the nodes are connected in the virtual address rather than in the physical address. Right. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that we can prove that as long as the party or malicious party does not control a really large ratio of all the nodes, like 25% of all the nodes in the NKN network, then the probability that it controls the probability that it controls at least one route is trivial. So it's like much smaller than one. So that it's basically negligible.
Okay. So the other idea is the consensus mechanism. So you said that the consensus mechanism doesn't need to relay all that information across all the nodes. How does that work? Is it like sharding, or is it like how?
So it's not like sharding. So it's still the consensus among all the nodes in the network, but instead of if someone knows like the PBFT, so in the PBFT, like all the nodes communicate with each other. It's like a broadcast, but it doesn't work for such a scale. Mm-hmm. So what we are using is like a neighbor-only connection. So each node is only connected to a small part of a small number of all the nodes in the network. For example, if there are 1 million nodes in the network, then every node only has 20 neighbors. So basically, it only communicates with a very small portion of the nodes, and we can show that the whole network with such algorithm is guaranteed to converge to a consensus state.
All right.
Yeah.
So I have another question.
A little bit. It's hard. It's a little bit hard for me to explain it without all the equations. But if you are interested, you can take a look at our white paper. There are some related math, and there are also like more technical details that to be released soon.
Yeah, I can give a kind of high-level analogy, if I may. So that's actually where the new kind of network name comes from. It's related to a new kind of science, which is based on this cellular automata. So the idea is really you can model a very complex system with very simple rules, and only like one cell, like in a human organism, right? One cell in the body, they only need to communicate with 10 or 20, maybe 100 cells around them, but somehow the whole body reach equilibrium, and which is balanced. So very similar concept in the high level, but the real fun part is in the math. So if anybody's interested, our technical white paper have lots of equations.
So
Yeah,
that's
that's
a really great
also
analogy.
why sometimes we call our product is that Cellular Automata powered blockchain, because the methodology that we inspired from the Cellular Automata, that is just collect with your label, we don't collect with everyone. Is this way, this network could be scalable, and you can allow millions of nodes to join, compared with just thousands or hundreds nodes to join the network.
Right, and that's where that's pretty cool. Where it is cellular, so that's from. So it is inspired from the cell, and I think that's a really great example that Bruce gave, which is that cells don't need to communicate, but the whole body as a whole works. So it's really cool how this whole system can just work together, and I guess that's the beauty of mathematics and getting physics majors and physics PhDs on a project, right? So in that sense, okay, so you have this whole idea, a new different consensus mechanism. You have a whole new proof of relay system. So how long will it take to even deploy this? Because it sounds like it's very abstract. Have you guys built any prototypes or test nets for this?
Yeah, in our roadmap, we mentioned that when we release the testnet in the Q1 of next year, 2019. But in fact, I think the core part will already speed up, and the progress is quicker than we expectation. In our GitHub, we already implemented some early stage prototyping in there, but it's still not to be open source. We hope we could be open source maybe in a short time in there, and then some people could play with the prototyping or have some taste in there.
Right. So right now it's closed source development because you guys don't want to review everything, but in the future you want to open source this.
Yeah, it will be open source soon, because I also open source funds, and I hope other people could get comments or even join the coding, something like that. But and to the beginning we do something. We just don't want just put some black report in there and hope everyone commits the code. We do something that make it small prototyping to work, and then some people who could be contributed based on that.
Right. And in terms of the kind of community as a whole, you want the community to come and develop with you guys? Is that the aim? Do you have are you kind of doing anything else extra to incentivize the community to develop with you guys?
Yes, we do have incentive to the community developers, because we just the economic model said in NKN, we just reserve some token in there to incentive talent to develop the joins. Even part time, it's okay. This product is distributed and all over the world, just like the network, all over the world, people could join and do the contribution.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea of blockchain technology and decentralization, which is that you have a whole pool of people to come and with their wealth of experiences to come and help develop. So now, in terms of the team, how big is the team right now, and who else is involved?
Yeah, currently we have 15 people, and most of them are developers. And about half are located in Beijing, China, and half are located in Silicon Valley, led by Bruce in there. And we hope we could be get to the big team and soon. But just at our experience, we don't need a very big team to do something. In software, just need a core team that they could be output some high quality code in there and make a better design in there. It's not to be done by lots of people, but some core people. But anyway, we hope other people that in the community could be join us if they have some good idea or some good coding style scale to do that. Maybe Bruce have more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we believe in kind of small but high quality team, like especially in this kind of a more infrastructure level core protocol development. It's not like a front end development or web server development. You need a kind of army of people. So we believe a small team to start and maintain high quality. And as Yanbo said, I think most of the components is already kind of running, but we do want to have a good enough early kind of proto system before we open sources. But that will happen really soon. And once that's out there, I think we'll attract high quality kind of community developers and also people to really find out all attack models and how to address those. So the protocol by itself is quite straightforward and simple to implement. So I think we probably spend 5 to 10% on the protocol itself, but the rest 80, 90% is really trying to find all the potential attack possibilities and how we mitigate them. So we cannot do that by our own. So that definitely need a larger community of researchers and developers to help us to address all those kind of corner cases and attack cases.
That does make a lot of sense because especially with this technology, the core protocol is pretty easy. But yeah, for sure, being under attack is your biggest concern. And we've seen that even with a lot of code that's deployed on Ethereum, where the code is just 200 lines, but there still can be potential attack vectors. So in your case, so you have a small team and you're trying to build this. So once this product is built, and you mentioned this about net neutrality as well. So how can this kind of fix net neutrality, or how can this improve the current system of everything?
So I think in any market, if you have a very healthy supply and demand, then if you have a healthy competition, that will never happen, right? So if in a market, you only have a handful of dominant or almost monopolistic kind of players, of course, they try to maximize their profit. And they try to control the infrastructure and try to profit as much as possible for the kind of OTT or the application on top of that. So the fundamental thing is not really only to kind of find a new application and to go around it. It's more about how can we actually increase the supply. So can we find more people willing to build out the network infrastructure? Up to today, there's very few people to do that. There's a few reasons. You have high barrier, you need to put in the money, and the income is kind of small and slow because you do the subscription model, like you said, $1 here, there, $10 a month. So it's very difficult really for people to justify the investment in this scale. So what we want to do is really use the token mechanism so smaller players can start to build out infrastructure. They are not only rewarded by the subscription or the relay traffic, but also by the mining reward, which is kind of significant in the beginning. So they actually can get much more kind of income from the mining and other reward that they can sustain their build out and even expand their network. So one or two small of those ISPs today cannot compete with the Verizons or the giants of the world. But if the smaller ones start to build out, and a federation of the smaller internet service providers on top of NKN as a federation, they can actually give the big guys a run for the money. And then we have much more supply to the network, and then we have much more competition, and the big guys will actually have to behave, right? So that's kind of basic market dynamics.
Right. So it's kind of promoting the smaller guys in the space to come forward, because obviously in most countries, the internet is dominated by a few players. And what you're saying is that here with the smaller players, by using and kind of benefiting, leveraging the power of the NKN token, you can actually allow them to develop and grow together as a federated network. So in that case, there's two questions I have to ask. One is that how would the big players respond in this case? They still hold a lot of the keys. So do you see any kind of potential pushback from the bigger players?
Even between the big carriers, I think there's also opportunity for partnership. So one example in the US is the cable companies. So lots of people are cutting the cord and going to streaming service. So the revenue is really dwindling in terms of the traditional income. And they are not very strong in the wireless. So many of them are trying to get into the wireless space, but they are facing uphill battle. They are the kind of the David versus the Goliath, who are the existing wireless carriers. So I think they might have incentive to work with us, or projects like us to have additional competitive advantage or additional return on investment for the things they put in. So that's kind of, I'm thinking, even big guys, they are different, and they are tier 2, tier 3, a cable versus fixed, and fixed versus wireless. So I think we have lots of opportunity to work with the existing big players and also to build out this NKN network.
How about the routing speed? So, for example, if I'm this is, I think, a bigger problem in China, or was a big problem in China, where there were two dominant providers and the connection between each other were poor. I think that's a problem that Yanbo probably knows. Before, back in the day, you probably have to have two two CDNs for the two different networks, the north of China and the south of China. So in that sense, how's connectivity speed between networks? Because if you're having a federated network and you need it to route between these networks, is it going to be just as fast, or is that not an issue?
Yeah, I think our business model in the beginning is a software overlay. So in the beginning, we cannot really fundamentally change underneath infrastructure. So if between these two CDN, you only have 1 gigabyte fiber, we will not be able to change that, right? But in the medium to long term, we're thinking if this token kind of incentive is big enough, there might be people start to build out a fiber network or a longer distance wireless kind of backhaul network. And so kind of non-traditional players, maybe currently they're in the electricity business, they could be in the property business, they could be in the highway or railway business, they're getting into this space. So they'll build out a new infrastructure. And then I think the new network will be built out and we'll have much better bandwidth for everybody. But that definitely will take some time. But hopefully this kind of, the business model will actually accelerate that and incentivize that.
Yeah, and I definitely...
Just as Bruce said, even without the fundamental infrastructure, we still could be build the overlay based on that. For example, some application like the WeChat, it's just replace the message SMS in already happened. So we hope that in a short time we also could do some application that even based on the already existed infrastructure. And
that is true. WeChat completely disrupted the whole SMS space. I mean, carriers used to charge money for SMS messages, and now they just give it out for free. And it should be free anyways, because SMS was meant to be just a signal when towers ping each other, right? It should have been free. So in that sense, you're trying to rebuild this whole network, and I definitely see the potential of this. I mean, I upload a lot of videos, and some of them are like 4 to 5 gigabytes, and it's interesting because sometimes at home I have the best internet possible. It's 100 megabytes, but even sometimes when I'm outside and I want to upload to a friend, even if I'm using some company internet, it's slow. So if you can harness the power of everyone nearby, and I can do the upload quickly and then just get off, because it's just a file, right? Once I'm sent, I'm done using the network. So I can definitely see the potential and the use case of this, because for me personally, I definitely want to send files quickly, and I don't want to spend 4 hours sending 4 gigabytes. That's stupid, right? But if you can harness like a lot of this connectivity power from just nearby neighbors, then that will be pretty awesome. So I definitely see the potential of this new kind of network, but I definitely see the disruptive power as well, because if I can do that outside and when I'm roaming, then it's definitely going to save me a lot of money, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just a quick comment on your first example about the large video upload. So we're not like a CDN kind of blockchain project, so we do not see your file at all. So your file be chopped into bits and packets, can go to totally different route and eventually arrive at the destination. So it's also secure for you as well, because we don't actually cache anything in between the nodes.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you don't see the information. You just see
no, we do not see the information. Right. We just see the IP packets, and also the same the same video file can be split into many different routes. We don't even have to use only one route.
Okay, so now the conversely, what if it's not a video file? What if it's a very small file, like say a private key? Is it possible for that file to not be split and then for someone to see what's inside?
Yeah, of course. For small ones, we do not have to split, and also you will be kind of depends on the end-to-end kind of security or kind of encryption. So yeah, we can also enable the hop-to-hop encryption as well.
Right. So is it safe then to use this network? Would there be security issues as well?
Unless you send this in a clear text by email, otherwise I think it will be fine. Yeah.
You'll be surprised.
Because the link is encrypted, so just you're safe in this case.
Right. Yeah, it's just like HTTPS. There's no way for us to see the content.
Right. Okay, so that's the power of encryption, right? So there's no way to break that unless I'm absolutely stupid and I do something really dumb. Okay, so now we have this whole concept going through. We talked about the timeline. Now, can we talk about the use case of the NKN token as well? So what is the NKN token used for?
So first of all, it's used for So of course, it's used within the NKN network for relay data, for as a payment method for relaying data at and purchase bandwidth. So basically, when someone shared bandwidth and relay data, he gets paid off the NKN tokens. And when someone wants other people to relay data for him, then he pays the NKN tokens. That's a native use case. And the other use case is for the apps that build within the NKN the system, or even outside the NKN blockchain. So imagine you are trying to build a decentralized IM, like instant message app, and you don't want to redo everything NKN is doing. You probably just want to utilize NKN to send a packet or a message to the destination for you, and then basically you pay NKN token to the nodes who relayed, and then you get it. So it'll be really easy for the DApp developers to develop new DApps with real-time data transmission capability.
Right. So I have a few questions for this as well. So you talked about DApps. So you can support other DApps, so say something like on Ethereum or on Neo. So those DApps can use NKN, is that correct?
Yeah. As long as we have a cross-chain payment method, then it will be usable.
So are you guys building a cross-chain payment method?
Maybe one step back. So the networking stack or the routing protocol itself is open source, right? So if you only want to use that one, you can use our source code and use that for your blockchain project or for your DApp. And if you don't want to use the incentive model, so that's another model, right? That's a power open source. But if you really want to utilize the network to really traffic for you, then yes, you need a token like this,
right?
Cross-chain contracts.
Right. And can NKN run DApps as well? Do you guys support smart contracts, and do you have a virtual machine?
Yes, we have. In fact, we want to compatible with at least with the Neo's smart contract. We even the smart contract developer for Neo, we could be running in NKN as well. And in the future, maybe we also could be support the smart contract even be developed for Ethereum in the Solidity.
Solidity, right? So right now, so you have your own virtual machine as well. So is it based or very close to what Neo had, or?
Because in the year before, I already developed the DNA project, which is an open source blockchain system. And in the DNA system, the virtual machine is already compatible with the Neo's virtual machine. So from this point of view, we already have a virtual machine that could be run in there. But we want to make it more, more compatible with other language and more, focus on the network side, because the other smart contracts that running on NKN is mainly want to utilization the network resource in this case.
Okay. Cool. And this is your experience from on-chain, right? Because I heard that you are one of the co-founders of on-chain as well.
Yes. Yeah. At the beginning, I'm the co-founder of on-chain, and also the co-developer of the DNA, which is we call the enterprise version of Neo at that time for the 2B's business in there. I lead a team of hiring talent developer in Beijing, and also we just developed the blockchain at that time. So that's also the experience we want to combine the blockchain with the network we have been working with the Bruce in before. We think by together, network and blockchain, we could be benefit each other in this case.
Right. So it's both the experience from the blockchain building with on-chain, and then combining that with the network and your experience at Nokia, looking at networks and doing that together. So in terms, okay,
Michael, just quick one. So Yanbo actually was also open source contributor to the Wi-Fi Linux driver in his previous life. So he actually have done lots of open source work in the networking stack before doing the blockchain open source project.
Oh wow, that's
that's the reason I love the open source, because I have been involved in the open source for more than 10 years in the Linux kernel domain. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of work done. That's crazy. So you guys are big contributors for open source. You did large. So the Wi-Fi Linux stack basically. That's huge, right? That's
Yeah, the Atheros Wi-Fi driver, basically the kind of most mostly used Wi-Fi driver for. I mean, Atheros is one of the biggest chipset vendor in the Wi-Fi, so you can go check out that.
That's crazy because yeah, Wi-Fi and connectivity was always a big problem for Linux, and then you guys actually managed to to build that. That's pretty awesome. Nice.
Yeah. Also, in team about the team, I have something in addition. Because the adult was Steve also joined the NKN project as the advisor. It's not only about Steve himself, but also the Crypto Lab, which is led by Dr. Steve, and there will be regular research review meeting with him, and also we have a lot of email discussion. And Bruce and Yilun also have some face-to-face discussion with Dr. Steve for some critical problem that we have. For example, one of the first research topic with Dr. Steve and his team is about how to do a base signature for the proof of relay. Yeah, and maybe you don't have more detail about that. What we discussed with Steve about that.
Okay, yeah, sure. So one of the problem we discussed or worked together with Dr. Diffie is that as I just discussed before, we have like the signature chain where each packet has when each relayer adds his own signature to the packet he relayed. But the number of packets in the network is so large, and it may become inefficient to do it for like every packet, or at least to send out the signature chain, every signature chain to the whole network. So we are working on like a probabilistic version of the signature chain that is more efficient, but also guarantee the fairness, so that the expected reward does not change, but it's like the number of packets that's sent to the network is much less, so it's more efficient.
Right, so you guys are improving efficiency on the network using kind of a lot of research done. So this is like the academic side of NKN, which is the collaboration with Dr. Diffie, which one of the best cryptographers in the world, and you guys are trying to improve the network efficiency here.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
We're lucky to be living very close to Dr. Diffie. So he's in the Palo Alto area, so we meet up quite easily. So that's really great. So maybe I have one more thing to add, because I think Yanbo and Yilun is really, they are the mastermind to build the NKN network. For me, it's really how to build a business on top of it, how to attract the users and ecosystem partners into this one. Because I think at the end of the day, you have to have people use it and also really find value from it. So that's my job, and I lead a small team of business and ecosystem development. So we're working with some of the Wi-Fi equipment vendors and core switch router vendors, and that's kind of the equipment vendor side. On the other quorum, we have the ISPs. So we do work with some of the larger companies, like for the cable companies, who want to compete in the wider space. We also work with smaller ISPs and upcoming kind of internet service providers, and so those are another piece. And the last one is really working very closely with the distributed application, or DApp ecosystem, to really use our NKN Foundation to incubate some of those innovative applications, especially which are very heavy in the communication space, like instant messaging is one example, or file sharing, or whatever that can actually benefits from the protocol we build.
That's crazy. So there's definitely a lot of room for collaboration that you're sounding like that, because there's wireless and wired connections, and they want to have a competitive edge in this space. So you're already working with partners. Can you disclose which exact companies you're working with, or is that currently in discussion right now?
Yeah, I think it's probably difficult to discuss, but two of the top cable companies in the US, we are discussing potential proof of concept projects. Yeah.
Wow. And so that would mean immediate business benefits for them. So I wish you the best of luck in discussing that, because that's a good way to push adoption, is to really let them know what this is useful for, and if you can really bring benefits from that's going to be awesome. In terms of what they want, but this is another kind of off-sided question, but in terms of open sourceness. Why would they want to work with you if they can just take your source?
I think there's a few reasons. I think lots of big companies, they experiment with blockchain, but I think if they do it themselves, they have legal issues and they have cannibalization of their own business. So they have a fight between the senior vice presidents. So as an outside project, I think actually it's fit their model better. So actually we have a higher level of probability of success than those kind of the internal projects by the big company. I think some of them have really good technical people, but I think the business model is really restraining them from fully utilize this new thing.
Oh, got it. So yeah, so it's actually easier for you to integrate with them than for them to integrate themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a question as well. How similar are you guys to Hashgraph? Because Hashgraph, they have this whisper mechanism that they can just communicate to a few of its members.
Hashgraph is more like the DAG, so it's not really a blockchain, but we are still using like the traditional blockchain. But it's just the consensus algorithm, a consensus step is done in the decentralized or in the localized way.
Okay, cool.
There are a few other projects in the kind of networking space. I don't want to really name names because this is such a new space. I don't want to say bad words about people because we all try to build something new, right? So, to compare with some other project in space, I think the space is so big. So I think we all work in a different kind of specialization. Some of the projects are very much focused on the wireless mesh or the Wi-Fi mesh or the Bluetooth mesh. So their protocol is more kind of have some dependency on their being wireless at the bottom, right? So that's a few projects in this space. And then the other projects are more focused on the purely VPN use case. So, okay, how I can be anonymous and how can be very secretive, how can I maintain confidentiality and etc. So that's another group of projects. Some projects is more toward the CDN. So they try to combine the networking with kind of content delivery to optimize it, incentivize. So I think we can do all those different use cases, but we really want to do the plumbing of the internet. So on very much the networking layer. So if you look at the kind of the blockchain kind of infrastructure, there are actually three pillars. So one is the computing, and one is storage, and one is networking. So computing, people talking about distributed computer like Ethereum or Neo, that's one. And then the storage, you have the IPFS out of Stanford, very famous, and storage, and they are carving out that space. For networking, I think we are probably one of the most ambitious projects, but there's lots of other projects also working in this space. We were happy to collaborate with them. But we do want to be one of the key pillars, one out of the three pillars of the internet economy.
Right, and that's a whole networking idea. I mean, the background for you guys is just absolutely crazy, and providing that infrastructure. I think there are definitely some competitors in the network space, but like you said, I think I like your view on it, which is that it's a very much a partnership and collaborative way of going forward. And the fact that you are choosing to go open source and not putting a patent on this, I think is quite remarkable.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, and also one more thing is that people sometimes we ask us about that, whether the NKN is an independent project or it will be based on Neo or Ethereum. So there's something I want to say is that NKN is an independent project that we have its own blockchain system. The reason is that the first is that for the efficiency and the verification transaction, because in a data communication network on global scale, it will be generate lots of transactions in real time. So no matter it's session-based or it's packet-based, we haven't found an existed blockchain system that could handle that. So we need to build our blockchain system by ourselves. And also, it's the number of nodes to join the network. Because currently, the blockchain system it's only have hundreds or thousands of nodes in there, but we hope to set up a network that with a billion or million of nodes in there. So we need a new consensus mechanism. We need new network topology. That's what we want to build. It's brand new with a currently existing blockchain system. So we will set up the blockchain system, by ourselves. Yeah.
Right. So the idea is that over here there's going to be more nodes. It's like even smaller devices, even mobile phones or something like that, can be a node. So that's why you need a whole new blockchain and a whole new consensus mechanism to really accommodate that huge scale that you guys are building towards, right?
Yeah, that's exactly true. So we cannot just build on top of existing chain because it will not be scalable for our kind of purpose.
That's pretty cool. And I really want to congratulate you guys on selling out on your public ICO, I think in less than an hour. And that's absolutely crazy that there's so much interest in building the new internet. And I wish you guys the best of luck in building this, because this is something that I feel like has a lot of direct applications, and it's such a amazing thing that blockchain can enable us to combine networking with the blockchain to really build something that's different and putting and changing the way that the internet is built. So I really hope to see the test net and to see the product in action soon. So wish you guys the best of luck.
Thanks, Michael. It's a
Thank
pleasure talking
you.
to you. Yeah.
Thank you.